Yeah.
This engine was getting dildoed.
My life is just living hell. I mean, we're pretty certain it's Rudniks. Spend over $30,000, do literally everything right, and every single thing I do on this, I like check it like 2 or 3 times. I like make sure that I did it right.
The significance of the $30,000 you put into this car in no way, shape, or form are going to help the reliability of this vehicle. He bought a car for sub $20,000. It's a GTR. He then put wheels, coilovers, he put turbos on his shelf, a clutch in the car or on his shelf. I don't know if he's even done the clutch yet. A Tessa pump, coil packs, Hall Tech. Some of these mods aren't really going to help the reliability of the car. The Hall Tech's probably good. Coil packs were probably good. But everything else is kind of aesthetic. So $30,000 has no relevance here.
And it's like not even 250 miles of driving, and this thing already has Rudniks. Has Rudniks. Swear to God.
Okay. Let's go listen to it.
Almost sad to see Jack in this state. I can read his face so good, and he is just beyond defeated here in this clip. No one looks good at the end of working with Chris in this scenario.
Oh, you did it.
Yeah. How? How did I do it?
Here Roberto says you did it, and Rudnick's like, yeah. Rudnick sounds fucking depressed. Roberto looks nervous. I don't know how you could blame Chris for this. To an extent, he was negligent, but he's only a product of the people around him. So if everyone around him says what you're doing is okay, he trusts them. The problem with Chris, though, is he trusts the people who say things that he wants to hear. So if I tell him don't push the stock turbos to the max, Jack tells him, Marcus tells him, his mother tells him, but Roberto says push it, Rudnick beelines for that one and says Roberto thinks it's fine, and he trusts him. But he did it. He blew it up.
One of the few cars that I actually take care of and really like a lot.
This line makes me laugh because how could he even take care of it in the short time he's owned it? He changed the oil. He's put 250 miles on it. It's one of the only cars he actually takes care of, he says. But it doesn't even have enough time to be taken care of. There was never a compression test done on this car, a leak down test. There was never oil samples taken. To me, with the way he got this car, I would have instantly done an oil sample and seen what was going on from the oil that was in the car when the car arrived. I wouldn't do it with after they change oil. I wouldn't do any of that. And I suggest anyone buying a GTR, get this done. Ask the place for the oil. Run the car, take the oil. There's places that will test the oil and tell you a lot of information about what's going on in the car.
I mean, what do you think happened to this thing anyways? Because honestly, I don't know.
Well, so things that blow up engines, low oil pressure, over revving, things like that. If you would have over revved, it throws a code.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I didn't over rev. The oil pressure is good, and my oil is high.
I know you didn't over rev because the computer tells me if you did. So I know that. Oil pressure is great. This engine started up with the port great. We've had no issues.
So right here, Roberto says, startup great. It had no issues. I'm pretty sure this car has been nothing but trouble since the start, and that's okay, but it's weird to say that in the 250 miles, supposed 250 miles he's put on the car, it's had no issues. It's had a lot of issues. He got the car, it needed a Tessa pump. It had the alternator wire break. It had an overcharging issue. It had a coil pack issue. It had a timing issue. It has literally had just about every issue that it could have. I mean, obviously short of like a water pump going, a crank angle sensor going, things like that. This car has had issues. So it's weird that he'd say it hasn't had any issues.
It's just, so when you have an engine misfiring the way it was, you know, because we had all those issues with the R35 coils, especially at the power it's making, those are really, really bad imbalances.
So this is where it gets good. He said, when you have a car misfiring because of the R35 coil packs, with the power this car is making, that is really bad imbalances. So what I would assume here is that he's claiming that at 400 horsepower, let's say multiple misfires, have imbalanced the RB26.
I feel partially to blame because it just took me so long to figure out that the R35 coils was the problem.
Now that was my favorite clip. He feels partially to blame because it took him so long to figure out that the R35 coils were the problem. I'm not denying the R35 coils are causing an issue. I don't think they're causing the issue because of what he thinks. So why would it take him so long to discover the R35 coils were causing an issue? And what was the timeline of that? Did the car start, misfire, and Roberto say, oh, Rudnik, you changed the coil packs, it's the R35 coils, and then move on? Or did that happen, and then they put it on the dyno, and then it happened again, and then they took it off the dyno, and then they swapped back, and then they swapped back, and they had recurring issues, and then Roberto decided they were Alibaba coils, which are Hitachi Japan, confirmed by everyone who knows anything, and then decide it was the coils, remove them, and then the engine blow a couple days later. That's what it really looks like happened. And like I said, we're going to get into theories of what actually happened.
But it's just, we had to test it, and the only way we could do it was to make pulls.
And now I'm going to be $3,000 poor.
Here he says he had to test it, and the only way he could do that was to make boost. I think there's other ways of testing things. I'm not a good diagnoser myself, but I think there's other ways of testing coil packs and what's going on, and especially the sounds I heard coming out of the coil packs. I probably wouldn't have done boost pulls. Look at how dark that oil is.
So you seeing anything?
I am, yeah.
Here we have the scene when they drain the oil out of the car. Rudnik claims this is 250 mile oil. My GTR, since being assembled, I'd say has maybe, I've gone through 2 tanks of E85. I'd say it probably has about 300 miles on it. Let's check out the oil. Okay, so I'm gonna show you what my oil looks like. I have no idea what it looks like. I brought a white piece of paper. I'm just gonna show you. Mine has about probably 300 miles on it. We're gonna look at what my oil looks like and see if it's similar to what Rudniks, because I saw a lot of people talking about the oil. So here's my oil. Wow, it looks darker on there. It is, there we go. How's that? It is more gold. It is, that looks like oil. Let's go get some clean oil and put it next to it. Some new oil. There's my oil. My oil is naturally darker. Only makes sense. It's also run with the 85. New oil, old oil. New oil, old oil.
Oh, you are?
You see the shininess?
Yeah.
Very, 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 very fine.
Very fine, yeah, through in here.
So I'm gonna say something which is really kind of stupid. So what I'm seeing here, it looks almost like an engine that was ran for like 50,000 miles with like older oil.
It looks like that to me too, because it looks like no one's ever changed oil on that thing. However, the rest of the theory falls apart, but Chris kind of was funny, like, yeah, it was really black when this thing showed up.
And it just kind of like lost its lubricity and was slowly eating away at stuff. So that
The oil was really black when it came in.
No.
No. The oil being black, it has nothing to do with that. Nothing was wrong with this car when it came in. It just looks like it lost its lubricity.
I'm not saying the engine had the problem. What I'm saying is like something caused this engine to wear excessively.
And that was probably the coil packs that caused the engine to wear excessively.
Or at least one of the bearings. And that is usually from imbalances or load.
The engine wearing prematurely is usually from imbalances. It's not from not changing oil, running bad oil, not maintaining the car correctly. Excessive wear is usually from imbalances in the engine.
If you take an engine, right, perfectly good on an engine, and you pull like an injector on it, and you do a road trip on it, sometimes the cylinder that you pull the injector on won't suffer. Its running mate will.
Okay.
This scene is literally just Roberto talking to try to sound more credible on something that he's creating as he goes along.
Because you know, when engines balance, one fires, other one fires, other one fires. You know, they're all made to kind of work together and balance each other out. So when you take one cylinder out of the equation, you ruin the balance, and then you start getting extremely uneven wear because it's not a balanced engine anymore. It's the difference between like spinning a frisbee and spinning a frisbee that you just chuck the piece off of it off. What's it gonna do? It's gonna go near like, you know what I mean? It's not a balanced disc anymore. That's what was happening to this engine. When we were making those pulls and we were potentially losing spark, we were off balance and the engine was, oh, you know what it is? It's a vibrator on like a PS4 controller.
On a dildo?
A dildo.
Yeah.
This engine was getting dildoed by those cold packs.
So as he continues his theory, developing his theory, we wind up now at the part where he just decides the engine was getting dildoed. He's now trying to dumb it down so far that the engine was vibrating, it was getting dildoed, and it caused rod knock in 5-10 miles. It's not realistic. Talk to Jamie, talk to Earl. No. My good friend over here, Tyler, he used to have a V8 S10. Now, this dude was driving this V8 swapped S10 for probably about a month and a half, and it was slow as shit, and he couldn't figure out why. Why was that slow as shit?
Well, I'll tell you why. 2 spark plug wires were crossed. They were in the wrong place.
Was this your daily driver for a month and a half?
Yeah, it was. And I was pissed at who I got it from because I was like, this thing's slow as shit. I'm pissed I traded my Integra for it.
But what it was his engine was getting dildoed. And it's weird you didn't get rod knock in that.
It's getting dildoed by the coil packs. Well, guys, I don't know what's going on.
Very true, Chris. You don't know what's going on. And it's apparent that neither does the people around you. So, like I said, I see everyone being hard on Chris. I see the comments. One of 4 things can happen. I'm going to be blamed because I sold him a fucking R35 coil kit. Jack is going to be blamed because he tuned it. Roberto's going to be blamed because he retuned it, burble tuned it, finger fucked it, and created all these theories that helped his agenda. Or Rudniks going to be blamed because he was negligent. And there's really only one thing that happened here. Now, I'll just go all the way from the beginning. Whenever Chris did his cams, he calls me up, and he's like, oh, I can't down on my car. And I'm like, why? He goes, because my timing is moving all over. And I said, really? Now, Roberto's there, Jack's there, Mark's is there. I don't know what their involvement was. I think Roberto and Mark was helping. Jack was just doing the tune. Timing was moving all over. Late at night, Jack wanted to go home. So Chris calls me. I'm like, dude, what'd you do? He's like, oh, I did cams, I did this. I said, did you do adjustable cam gears? He goes, yeah. I said, one of your adjustable cam gears is probably loose. I don't hear from him again. Video pops up. So one of my adjustable cam gears were loose. That's why my car was acting like this way. Berto fixed it. We're good. Papa Tom never got any credit for that one. But from 1,200 miles away, I solved that issue. At that time, Roberto was blaming the coils, I believe, because Rudnick had also done the R35 coil kit. He suggested it was the coils from the R35 coil kit first and never changed the dwell settings. So what Chris did was, Chris was like, does anything need to be changed in the ECU? And Roberto said, no, you don't need to change anything in the ECU. You do need to change things in the ECU. If you need to, go look up dwell settings online. I can give you a little snippet from this article I found that basically says mapped dwell. This is when the ECU sets the dwell based on an internal map, meaning someone personally sets it. The main variable is battery voltage. Battery voltage has a major effect on the time needed to allow a coil to reach the target current level. The map has to be programmed correctly for the particular coil used. Nearly all production vehicles now use this method. So you heard 2 things in there. 1, it has to be set, which it wasn't. Might not be catastrophic. 2, the main variable is battery voltage. Battery voltage has a major effect on the time needed to allow a coil to reach target current level. His battery voltage, as you know, which was a later issue, was at 18 volts at idle. It was overcharging. Those coils are good to 16 volts. 18 is 2 more. Now at 6,000 to 8,000 RPMs, as you know, in alternator spins, it creates more voltage. That voltage could be 20, 22, 24. No one knows. No one logged it. No one checked. So at some point between all this, a pull was done with idle at 18, which could have fried the coil packs and also could have fried the ECU. But then pulls were done, which could have brought it up to even higher than 18. So I already know 18 is too high. We don't even need to know that it went higher, but it definitely did. Okay? So they realized the voltage was 18 and idle. They fixed that. Then the voltage was at 12 volts. So now you have too low. I don't know what the demands are. I don't know what that could damage, but I don't think... I know the tune is off higher, and I know the tune is off lower, no matter what. The coils were popping. The coils were making crazy noises. You saw it in the video. Dwell settings were still never set. Now, when you have a coil problem, the only thing you can do is look at the ignition table on the Haltech and mess with that if it's a coil problem. Or you can remove them. You can completely remove them. Dwell settings are still never set. So then he thinks the coils are firing on their own. That was his theory. It's very possible after you rage a coil and you don't set the dwell settings, it could be firing on its own. Who knows? He then fixes Jack's tune, which is, I have the biggest problem. You have a non-tuner going in there. Jack explicitly told Chris, only do wide open throttle pulls because mid-range is not there. I don't want to tune mid-range. This is a stupid procedure. That Chris is trying to create this narrative for no reason of the steps of building an RB26 the worst way possible. I don't know why he's doing this. I've told him not to do it a million times. Jack has told him not to do it, but he still wants the storyline for you guys where you guys are like, oh, cool, you made 409 horsepower in stock turbos. Now put new turbos on and make more power. No one gives a shit. But anyway, he fixes Jack's tune. No one really knows what that means. I don't know what it means. Jack doesn't know what it means. I don't know if Roberto knows what it means, but he fixes the tune, and he adds a burble tune to it. Now, this engine, he's so scared is imbalanced. He's adding burble tunes to rolling anti-lag, two-step. All these things are set on Chris's car. We've all seen him do all of them. But his fear is the imbalance of the engine, which is kind of crazy. Now, the car has now run lean during a partial throttle pull because Jack never tuned it for partial throttle. His cam timing has moved around because of the loose cam gear. He had the alternator wire break off and has had many other electrical issues. Comes to the conclusion that it's an imbalanced engine from misfire, aka a dildo engine. So after all this, like I said, it's a dildo engine. It vibrated itself in 10 miles of coil packs misfiring to the point of rod knock. Chris's car is fucked, and he's the one that's got to front the bill. My advice to Chris: learn a little bit on your own. And I'm not saying like that negatively. When I first heard the coil pack thing and I heard some of the theories, the part of me that knows a little bit was skeptical, and I think Chris could use a little skepticism because sometimes he's being told things with a different agenda. I think Roberto is basically blinded by his distaste for me and those coil packs for whatever reason, and he just wants that to be the problem so bad he doesn't care about what the actual problem is. Regardless, the only person who's suffering now is Chris because he's got a bad R32 GTR, and kind of HP Imports because it doesn't look good for their business that they imported this car and it's had all these problems. I couldn't imagine buying a GTR and having the Tesla pump be bad, and all these other things that I don't know if Chris caused or was like that. I wouldn't be stoked on paying $25,000 for a GTR that's bad, a Tesla pump and black oil in it like that. But regardless, Chris is fucked. All we can do now is hopefully educate him, help him, and hopefully he builds this thing to be faster than my GTR. Because it isn't right now, bitch. So I'm going to end the video there. I was asked to do this video by literally, this is the most amount of DMs I've ever received about a reaction video, and I had to do it. And it was fun for me, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. See you tomorrow.